Here's part of what Kevin Durant wrote in the Players Tribune. I'm going to read this along with you because I have not seen it yet. This has been by far the most challenging few weeks in my professional life. He wrote, I understood cognitively that I was facing a crossroads in my evolution as a player and as a man, and that it came with exceptionally difficult choices. What I didn't truly understand, however, was the range of emotions I would feel during this process. The primary mandate I had for myself in making this decision was to have it based on the potential for my growth as a player, as that has always steered me in the right direction. But I'm also at a point in my life where it is of equal importance to find an opportunity that encourages my evolution as a man, moving out of my comfort zone to a new city and community which offers the greatest potential for my contribution and personal growth. With this in mind, I've decided that I'm going to join the Golden State Warriors. The rich get richer. I'm from Washington, D.C. originally, he continued, but Oklahoma City truly raised me. It taught me so much about family as well as what it means to be a man. There are no words to express what the organization and the community mean to me and what they represent in my life and in my heart forever. The memories and friendships are something that go far beyond the game. Those invaluable relationships are what made this deliberation so challenging. It really pains me to know that I will disappoint so many people with this choice. But I believe I am doing what I feel is the right thing at this point in my life and my playing career. I will miss Oklahoma City and the role I have had in building this remarkable team. I will forever cherish the relationships within the organization, the friends and teammates that I went to war with on the court for 9 years, and all the fans and people of the community. They have always had my back unconditionally, and that from Kevin Durant today on his announcement. Let's get more reaction now here from the Hall of Famer Isaiah Thomas, who's with us from parts unknown. I don't know where you are, Zeke, but I want to know how surprised you are, if at all, about this move.
I'm not surprised that he left OKC. I am surprised that he chose Golden State. However, when I think about Golden State's team and also their management, when you look at Myers and you look at Jerry West, this is something that I think he would look at OKC's management and Golden State's management and probably say, okay, who has the best chance of giving me the opportunity to win a championship and grow as a person and also grow as a man. And I think Golden State presented that to him more so than OKC.
I want to get your thoughts on this idea of superstars changing teams. We went through this a couple of times with LeBron James back in the summer of 2010 and then just 2 years ago, because you played in an era where players for the most part didn't do this through free agency and they didn't team build the way it's done now, where stars kind of collude and get together to build super teams. Well, what do you make of this idea that he's joining the team that he couldn't beat in the Western Conference playoffs?
Matt, when you're talking about winning championships and you're talking about competing against, the opponent, and I'll take myself back to when we had to compete against the Celtics and try to dethrone the Celtics. You always want to make the opponent weaker so you can therefore dethrone them. And if Larry Bird had any point in time said, hey, I want to come play for the Detroit Pistons, we all would have welcomed Larry Bird with open arms and said, hey, come play with us. In sports, I believe in dominance. I believe that, when you do have super teams and you do have great players playing with each other, I think it makes the game better and it elevates the league and it forces everyone to dig a little deeper and get a little better. So I refer to those Celtics teams and I look at those Lakers teams. I mean, Matt, when I stood on that podium with the 50 greatest players ever, I was the only one on that podium who didn't have a teammate that was one of the 50 greatest players to ever play the game. So all these, when we talk about great players moving teams, moving from team to team to play with each other, that's always been the history of our league. However, that hasn't been the narrative of our league. But when you look at that Laker team, when you look at that Celtic team, all those teams were stacked. And I'm sure when Jerry West had a chance to speak to Kevin Durant, he probably pointed out to him that Magic played with Kareem, Worthy, Bob McAdoo, I mean, so forth and so on. I mean, it's that's how the league is. And when you look at football, the greatest players, the greatest teams, that San Francisco 49ers team, I think they had 11 or 12 Pro Bowlers on that team. When Deion Sanders left Dallas to go play for the 49ers. So this has been the history of sport, and the narrative hasn't necessarily reflected the history of our game.
Well, by the way, he's leaving a pretty good team as well, and a team that arguably should have reached the NBA Finals after not being able to finish off a 3-1 lead against the Golden State Warriors. What is your interpretation of Russell Westbrook's future? You know how players talk. Obviously, at some point, Durant had a conversation with Russ. It doesn't mean that whatever Russ told him was a factor in his decision, but as a player, what's your interpretation?
As a former player, I go back and I try to put myself in that locker room. And at one time, you had Westbrook, you had Harden, you had Durant, you had Ibaka. All of them were very young men growing up in this league. And you do form relationships of trust, loyalty, and respect. And when you see your friends constantly being moved or traded or going to different places, that definitely reflects on management. And I would say Westbrook will probably either be traded before the season starts to see what they can get for him, or at the end of the season, Westbrook leaves and he goes to another franchise.
Do you think one way or the other he's out the door?
If you're Westbrook and you've seen Harden go out the door, and regardless of his relationship with Reggie Jackson or not, you've seen Jackson go out the door, you've seen Ibaka go out the door, and you've seen Durant go out the door. These are all guys that you've been to war with, you know, and had 7, 8 years of, you know, bond and trust and friendship with, and they all walk out the door. You know, that the door looks, you know, pretty wide open for you now to walk out also.
As for his new team, Durant joins a Warriors team that already had 3 All-Stars on it, 3 elite Olympic-type players. The Steph Curry's not part of the Olympic team this summer. Just how formidable a group is this? The Warriors are a young team. They've already won the West back-to-back years. Durant won't be 28 until September. Their stars are all in their 20s. What kind of a juggernaut could this be?
Well, it's going to be must-see TV, and it's going to be great for you and I, Matt, on NBA TV every night. But I think for the league, and I think for basketball internationally as a global game, you know, this is going to be a great team to watch and to chronicle and see how well they can do. Now, you know, I think for Cleveland and other teams who are trying to compete with them, it forces Cleveland now to say, okay, we have to make another move. We have to get better because Golden State just got better.
Forces everybody to reconsider things at this point. More to the point, how do you guard this team?
What was the movie Eat, Pray, and Love? There will be nights when the 3 of them are on, and it's going to be must-see TV, and we probably have never seen a team like this in the NBA, and I'm looking forward to seeing a team like this play in the NBA with their scoring ability, their youth, their athleticism. When you talk about changing the game and the game evolving and all this other stuff, well, now we get to see the best of the best do it and do it at a very high level. And I hope they all can compete and play at a very high level.
I don't think there's any question about that. It's enormous news. Isaiah, we appreciate you stopping by for your perspective.
Hey, thank you.
All right, let's bring in TV's Brent Barry, who spent part of his childhood basically in the Warriors locker room, son of the Hall of Famer Rick Barry, of course. Brent, I'll ask you the same question I've asked everybody today so far. Just how surprised are you that Kevin Durant, A, left, and B, landed by the Bay?
Well, I also spent time in the locker room as a player, Matt, so thank you for that. No kidding. You know, Matt, I'm not totally surprised about the news today. Obviously, it's some early fireworks for a lot of people who are NBA fans on the 4th of July to hear the Kevin Durant news. But, the Warriors and the Spurs, I believe, Matt, behind the scenes, there was a lot of talk, and you and I talked about it during the finals, about which teams were lining up for the Kevin Durant opportunity this summer, and that those teams had kind of made tracks over the course of the past couple of seasons to be in this kind of position and to make their pitches. Kevin Durant has said a lot of things about just returning to OKC, so it might be a bit of a curveball for those on a daily basis who heard from KD, but I'm not incredibly surprised. Kevin Durant taking on a new city, a new challenge, moving from the East Coast to the West Coast and seeing the potential with what it is the Warriors can unlock with the way they're going to play and how they're going to compete for a title here for seemingly the next 6 to 8 years.
You mentioned a couple of teams, the Spurs and Warriors, who have not only been incredibly successful but are known for their culture and their team-first culture in particular. It's interesting to me the contrast between those teams and Durant's Oklahoma City Thunder team, which was known largely as a one-on-one sort of offense, not only under Scott Brooks but under Billy Donovan this past season. Well, what do you make of the difference between the teams he looked at closely and his ultimate decision and where he came from?
Well, I think a lot of that, Matt, was the way that they have played over the past couple of years was, if you looked at their lineup and their supporting cast, there wasn't too much in terms of their offensive creativity with the way that the roster had been set up. I mean, everybody points to when James Harden was on the team and coming off the bench years ago. Look, we're so far removed from that they filled spots around what it was that the dynamic play of both Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook gave to them, and that was enough for many, many years of success and deep pushes. I guess what makes it a little more shocking and a little bit more hurtful is where OKC found themselves this year, Matt, and how close they were to getting past the Golden State Warriors, having the 3-1 lead, and not getting to the finals this year. And maybe what was at play in Kevin Durant's head with regards to, look, if we can't beat them, join them. But the interesting thing, Matt, I'm talking to my friends here as we're celebrating the 4th of July and get ready to play some beach volleyball, and the conversation is more turning around the competitiveness of the league and about a player like Kevin Durant joining an already elite team in the NBA. I saw a great quote that said, "A flower doesn't compete against the flower next to it. It just blooms." That's what Golden State wants to do. They just want to bloom. And I'll tell you what, they have the potential to be one of the prettiest things that we've ever seen in the game.
They've got a full bouquet there on the roster in Golden State for sure.
That is correct, yes.
I know how your brain works. I know how you get into the X's and O's of basketball, so I imagine you've already given this some thought. What does the Warriors' offense look like next year, and how do you guard it?
Well, you don't. You don't guard it. I mean, obviously, Matt, the first thing you think about if you're a competitive team is how much, and we saw this at play during the NBA Finals, how much the physical part of the game can disrupt what it is that the Warriors do. But we're not talking about filling the roster with just another scorer. We're talking about an MVP of the league. We're talking about one of the most lethal long-range players that we have in the game, already combining with two of the best shooters that we have, and such dynamic offense that Steve Kerr has. I mean, what I'm excited about most, Matt, is I would tell you this. I'm interested in the process of how Golden State finds whatever that is, whatever the holy grail is with regards to their style of play or what it is that Bob Myers and Steve Kerr see with where this team goes. Watching the process next year is going to be fascinating. They're going to lose more games than they did last year, I guarantee you that. But watching them get to this elite level together and how Steve Kerr manipulates this basketball team is going to be a fantastic ride next year.